The price of defiance. The air in the interrogation chamber was sterile, cold, and thick with the metallic scent of blood. Captain Aria Voss, a soldier of the human resistance, hung from the restraints welded into the ceiling. Her arms ached from bearing the weight of her own body, and her breaths came in shallow gasps. Blood dripped from the gashes along her ribs, painting crimson streaks down her tattered uniform. The Galactic Empire did not believe in mercy. Across from her stood Inquisitor Verix, a tall, imposing figure draped in obsidian armor. His reptilian features twisted into a grin, his sharp teeth glinting under the harsh white lights. "You are remarkably stubborn, Captain Voss," he mused, circling her like a predator. "Most break long before this point." Aria's swollen eye barely opened, but she still found the strength to glare at him. "Then maybe," she rasped, "you should try harder." Verix chuckled. "Oh, you misunderstand. I do not need you to talk. Your suffering alone sends a message to your people." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "They will see what becomes of those who defy the Empire. They will know that no matter how hard they fight, they will lose." Aria coughed, tasting copper. "Then you don't know humans very well." Verix sighed, as if disappointed. "No, I suppose I don't. But I do know pain. And I assure you, I have far more patience than you have strength." He nodded toward the technician standing behind the control panel. A moment later, searing agony ripped through Aria's body. The electrical surge sent her nerves into a frenzy, every muscle locking in unbearable tension. She arched against the restraints, biting down on her lip so hard she tasted fresh blood. The pain subsided, leaving her gasping, her body trembling. Verix leaned in, his voice a whisper. "Tell me where your resistance is hiding." Aria let out a weak chuckle. "Go to hell." The next few hours passed in a haze of torment. They burned her, cut her, deprived her of air. But she did not speak. She would not. The resistance was more than a group. It was humanity's last chance. If she betrayed them, the fight would die before it had a chance to begin. Eventually, her body could take no more. Her vision blurred, her heartbeat slowed. The cold began to seep into her bones, dulling the pain. Aria knew she was dying. Good, she thought. If I die, they get nothing. As the darkness swallowed her, she heard Verix's voice, distant and fading. "Dispose of the body." Then there was nothing. The guards dragged Aria's lifeless body into a holding cell, tossing it onto the cold metal floor. The room was dimly lit, the hum of distant machinery the only sound. The Empire was efficient. Soon, a disposal unit would arrive to incinerate the remains. No burial, no trace left behind, just another rebel erased from history. But history had other plans. 40 minutes after her heart had stopped, Aria's fingers twitched. Her body convulsed, sucking in a desperate, gasping breath. Her eyes shot open, burning with something new. The pain was gone. The exhaustion, the agony, it had all vanished. She sat up, her hands pressing against the floor for stability. Her mind reeled, struggling to make sense of what had just happened. She remembered dying, the pain, the darkness. And yet, she was here. She lifted a trembling hand, staring at it. Her wounds, deep, jagged cuts, were closing before her eyes. The bruises faded, the broken ribs knitting themselves back together. This isn't possible. Footsteps echoed from outside the cell. A guard coming to check on the body. Aria's breath steadied. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with something else. A clarity she had never felt before. She could hear the guard's heartbeat through the wall, the shifting of his armor as he moved. Her senses were sharper. Her muscles felt stronger. She had died, but she had returned. And this time, she wasn't going to let them win. The impossible return. The cell reeked of death. Or at least, it should have. Aria Voss sat on the cold metal floor, staring at her hands in disbelief. Only moments ago, no, 40 minutes ago, she had died. She remembered the darkness swallowing her, the pain fading, the absolute stillness of death. And yet, here she was, alive, stronger. Her hands no longer trembled with exhaustion. Her wounds had closed, only faint scars remaining where deep cuts had been. Her ribs, broken from the relentless torture, no longer ached. Her body felt different, lighter, more attuned to the world around her. Footsteps approached outside the cell. Aria's head snapped toward the sound. She could hear them, far clearer than she should have. The rhythmic pattern of boots, the shifting weight of a heavily armed soldier. The guard was coming to check on her corpse. She forced herself to stay still, lowering her head, feigning lifelessness. The cell door slid open with a mechanical hiss, casting a thin beam of light into the dim room. The guard stepped inside, a bored sigh escaping his lips. Time to. Aria moved. Faster than she thought possible, she lunged forward. Her fingers wrapped around the barrel of his rifle, yanking it upward before his brain could even process what was happening. With a swift, brutal motion, she slammed her knee into his abdomen. He gasped, doubling over, and she struck again, an elbow to the base of his skull. He collapsed before he could sound the alarm. Aria stood over the unconscious guard, her breath steady, her mind eerily calm. She should have been tired, struggling, barely holding on after what she had endured. But instead, she felt unstoppable. She stripped the guard of his gear, a sidearm, a combat knife, a communicator. The rifle was too bulky, but the pistol fit comfortably in her grip. Then, she caught her reflection in the metal wall. Her face was still hers, sharp features, dark hair matted with blood and sweat. But her eyes, they glowed faintly. A deep, eerie blue, pulsing with something beyond human. What the hell did they do to me? She didn't have time for answers. Alarms would sound soon. She needed to move. Aria stepped into the hallway, pressing herself against the wall. The Imperial prison was a labyrinth of sterile corridors and reinforced doors. The place was designed to keep people in. She had other plans. Command Center, Imperial Detention Complex. Inquisitor, we have a problem. Varix turned from his console, irritation flashing across his reptilian features. The technician at the surveillance station was pale, staring at the screen as if it had personally offended him. Speak, Varix ordered. The technician hesitated, then tapped a control panel. The screen shifted to display live security footage from Cell 47, the one where Aria Voss's corpse had been placed. Except the cell was empty. Varix's amusement vanished. Impossible. She was dead. The technician's voice wavered. Sir, she was clinically dead for 40 minutes. No pulse, no brain activity. But he pulled up another screen. This was from 2 minutes ago. The footage showed Aria taking down the guard with terrifying efficiency. She moved faster than she should have, reacted before the guard could even aim his weapon. Enhance the footage, Varix commanded. The image zoomed in on Aria's face. Her eyes glowed. For the first time in years, a chill ran down Varix's spine. Alert all units, he growled. Find her. Now. Prison interior. Aria moved like a ghost through the corridors. Every step was calculated, every shadow an opportunity. Her senses were sharper than ever. She could hear conversations from rooms away, feel the vibrations of approaching footsteps through the floor. A group of guards turned a corner ahead, rifles at the ready. She pressed against the wall, waiting. She could hear their breathing, sense their tension. They knew something unnatural had happened. Command says she's alive, one muttered. How is that possible? Doesn't matter, another replied. We shoot on sight. Aria's fingers tightened around her stolen pistol. She could take them. The moment they passed her hiding spot, she struck. A single shot to the first guard's knee sent him toppling with a scream. Before the others could react, she was already moving, grabbing the second guard's rifle and yanking it downward, forcing his shot into the floor. She twisted his arm until the bone snapped, then turned his own weapon against the remaining guard. 3 seconds. 3 guard down. She exhaled, barely winded. Something was very wrong with her. But she didn't have time to worry about it. She pulled up the communicator she had taken from the unconscious guard earlier and tuned into the Imperial channels. The chatter confirmed what she already knew. Every soldier in the complex was hunting her. Good. If they were focused on her, they wouldn't be looking for the other prisoners. She sprinted toward the detention block. If she was going to escape, she wasn't doing it alone. And as she moved, a realization settled into her mind. She had died, and yet she had come back. stronger, faster, something beyond human. The Empire thought they had broken her. They had no idea what they had created. The rebellion's angel of vengeance. The prison was chaos. Alarms blared, red emergency lights flashing across the steel corridors. The Imperial Guard scrambled, their orders overlapping in the comms. Target is in the lower detention block. She is unarmed, but highly dangerous. Do not engage alone. Repeat, do not engage alone. Aria Voss smirked as she crouched behind a crate near the detention wing. It was amusing, really. Less than an hour ago, she had been a broken prisoner. Now, she was the Empire's worst nightmare. She studied the hallway ahead. Two guards stood by the security console, scanning the area nervously. Behind them, a reinforced door led to the prisoner cells, her objective. Aria inhaled slowly. Every nerve in her body was alive, every movement deliberate. She had tested her abilities already. Faster reflexes, heightened senses, increased strength. But there was more. Something deeper. Something unstoppable. She moved. Before the guards could react, she closed the distance. The first barely had time to widen his eyes before she drove her fist into his throat, sending him crashing against the console, gasping for air. The second fumbled for his weapon, but she was already behind him. A swift kick to the knee dropped him, and she finished him with a precise blow to the temple. The fight was over in seconds. She pressed a bloodied hand to the security console, scanning the interface. It was a simple system. Imperial arrogance meant they never expected a prisoner to break free, let alone hijack their controls. Within moments, she had overridden the locks. A mechanical hiss filled the corridor as the detention doors slid open. Dozens of prisoners stepped into the dim light, their faces a mixture of confusion and disbelief. Rebels, smugglers, civilians who had dared speak against the Empire. A familiar face emerged from the crowd. Lieutenant Kieran Holt, her second in command. His dark eyes widened as he took in the sight of her, alive and very much not dead. Aria. His voice was hoarse, disbelieving. She nodded, tossing him a confiscated blaster. No time for questions. We're getting out of here. Command Center. Varix watched the security feeds with barely contained fury. Captain Aria Voss should have been dead. She had died. He had seen her broken body with his own eyes. And yet, she was tearing through his facility like a force of nature. Contain her, he growled. Deploy the enforcers. I want her. The feed flickered. The prisoner cells had been opened. The resistance was no longer a single woman. They were now an army. Varix exhaled slowly, forcing himself to remain composed. If she wasn't stopped here, the consequences would be catastrophic. He reached for his sidearm. If his soldiers failed, he would deal with her himself. Escape route, prison interior. Blaster fire filled the corridors as the freed prisoners fought their way through the facility. Aria led the charge, her movements precise, lethal. She barely needed a weapon. Every strike, every dodge was instinctual, almost superhuman. Kieran fought beside her, firing controlled shots as they moved toward the hangar bay. "What the hell happened to you?" he shouted over the chaos. Aria didn't look at him. Her eyes focused on the next set of approaching guards. "I don't know," she admitted. "I died. Then I came back." Kieran cursed, but didn't press further. Now wasn't the time. A heavy blast door loomed ahead, the final barrier between them and escape. But before they could reach it, a figure stepped into their path. Inquisitor Varix. The reptilian enforcer's expression was unreadable, but his posture spoke volumes. He wasn't here to negotiate. "I don't know what you are," he said, voice calm but laced with menace. "But it ends here." Aria met his gaze, something cold and determined settling in her chest. "No," she said. "It begins." Varix lunged. The duel. He was fast, faster than any human opponent Aria had faced. His strikes were brutal, precise, enhanced by Imperial combat augments. He wielded a crackling energy blade, its violet edge humming with lethal power. But Aria was faster. She ducked beneath his first swing, feeling the air distort where the blade passed. Her body reacted on instinct, twisting away before his follow-up strike could land. She moved with a fluidity that was unnatural, inhuman. Varrix's frustration was evident. He pressed harder, aiming to overwhelm her with relentless attacks. Sparks flew as his blade slashed through walls and consoles. Aria waited, studying his movements, sensing his rhythm. Then, in a single heartbeat, she moved. She sidestepped his strike and drove her fist into his ribs. The force sent him skidding backward, his armor denting from the impact. Varrix's eyes widened in shock. Impossible. Aria tilted her head. You tortured me, killed me, and now you think you can win. Varrix snarled and charged again, but Aria was done playing. She caught his wrist mid-swing, twisting with unnatural strength. His energy blade clattered to the ground. Before he could react, she struck an open palm blow to his chest that sent him crashing into the steel wall with enough force to dent it. He slumped, struggling to breathe. Aria stood over him, breathing evenly. She could end him now, easily, but death was too quick. Instead, she turned away. Rot in this prison, she said, voice cold. She didn't look back as she rejoined her people. The escape. The blast doors opened. The stolen Imperial transport awaited. As the rebels boarded, Aria paused, taking in the sight of the facility behind her. The prison that had been her tomb. Not anymore. She stepped onto the ship, the engines roaring to life. As they soared into the void, Kieran leaned against the bulkhead, watching her. What now? He asked. Aria's glowing eyes met his. Now, she said, we fight. Humanity's new dawn. The stolen Imperial transport streaked through the darkness of space, its engines burning hot as it fled the prison world. Inside, the air was thick with tension. The freed prisoners sat in silence, their eyes darting between Aria Voss and the viewports, waiting for the inevitable pursuit. But none came. Aria stood at the cockpit, her hands gripping the edges of the control panel. Her mind was still adjusting to what had happened. She had died. She had returned. She had changed. And now, she had done the impossible, escaped an Imperial stronghold, taking dozens of prisoners with her. Kieran Holt stepped up beside her. We should reach the Resistance outpost in 2 hours, he said. Then, lowering his voice, that's if we don't have an Imperial fleet on our tail. They won't follow, Aria murmured. Kieran raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? She wasn't. But something in her gut, this new instinct, sharper than anything she had ever felt before, told her the Empire wouldn't risk chasing her. Not yet. Not after what they had seen. Not after what she had become. The Resistance outpost. The ship touched down in a hidden base carved into the side of a cratered moon. Armed rebels rushed to meet them, their expressions shifting from suspicion to awe as the freed prisoners stepped onto solid ground. Aria was the last to disembark. A hush fell over the crowd as they saw her. She could feel their eyes tracing the scars on her arms, lingering on her face. But it was her eyes that made them uneasy, the faint, unnatural glow that hadn't been there before. General Elias Rourke, the grizzled leader of the human resistance, pushed through the crowd. His gaze locked onto Aria, scanning her like a man searching for a ghost. We received reports you were dead, he said finally. I was. The silence deepened. No one dared speak. Then, without another word, Rourke pulled her into a brief, firm embrace. Welcome back, Captain, he said. And just like that, the tension broke. The rebels erupted in cheers. They weren't just celebrating the return of prisoners. They were celebrating her. Aria Voss, the unbreakable. The woman who had died and still came back fighting. But deep inside, she knew something was wrong. The truth of what she had become. The Resistance's medical team ran every test they could think of. Scans, blood work, neural analysis. The results left them with more questions than answers. Physically, she was human, but her body was changing. Faster reflexes, increased strength, wounds healing at impossible speeds. The energy readings from her nervous system didn't match anything in their databases. And her eyes, always glowing, pulsing with some unknown force. This isn't natural, Rourke said, arms crossed as he studied the data. Aria sat across from him, Kieran at her side. I don't care what it is, she said. What matters is what we do next. Rourke leaned forward. The Empire is already scared. Word is spreading across the occupied sectors. They don't know what happened to you, but they know it means trouble. They should be scared, Aria said, voice cold. Kieran shifted uncomfortably. You're talking about war. We've always been at war, Aria countered. But now, we have an advantage. The Empire just learned that no matter what they do, no matter how hard they try, they can't kill me. Rourke studied her carefully. You're suggesting we make you the face of the rebellion. Aria met his gaze. I'm suggesting we take the fight to them. No more hiding. No more waiting for them to crush us, one colony at a time. She leaned forward. We strike. Hard. Loud. We make them fear us. Rourke nodded slowly. You're certain about this? She flexed her fingers, feeling the strange, humming power within her. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. The Empire watches. Deep within an Imperial warship, Inquisitor Varix stood before a massive holographic display. The footage of Aria's resurrection looped in front of him, analyzed from every possible angle. A high-ranking Imperial officer watched with folded arms. What is she? Varix's expression was unreadable. Something beyond us. The officer exhaled sharply. The Emperor won't stand for this. She's a threat. Varix's claws tightened behind his back. Not a threat, he thought. Something worse. She has become their symbol, he said aloud. Which means she must be destroyed. The officer nodded. Then it's time we remind the humans what happens to rebels. Varix's gaze remained on the hologram of Aria, her glowing eyes defiant even in death. No, he thought. This is no longer about rebellion. This is about something greater. And for the first time in his life, he felt the unfamiliar chill of fear. The beginning of a legend. As the resistance forces rallied, Aria Voss stood at the center of it all, watching as soldiers prepared for war. She wasn't just a soldier anymore. She was a symbol, a myth. The woman who had died and returned, stronger than before. Kieran stepped up beside her, watching the preparations. You really think we can win this? Aria's eyes burned with an unshakable fire. We don't just win, she said. We rise.